This happened several years ago, and I won't go into a ton of detail because Google exists, and I don't want to point a bit arrow to where it happened by saying too much. I had worked at a big pizza chain for almost a year at this point, so I was aware of a lot of the dangers of the job: robberies, drunken morons, naked people, etc. But this instance really made me sink in. A girl had been reported missing in our area under super suspicious circumstances. It was a big deal in a relatively small town where things like that don't happen super frequently. It was all over the news, billboards were being put up, the whole shebang. We had state cops, other county cops, and federal investigators all in town to help. A few weeks after the initial report, they announced an arrest. They had the guy dead to rights, no question that he was the one who did it. When I got to work that day, someone asked me if I had seen the announcement. I hadn't yet, so I pulled up the news article on my phone. Holy shit. I know that name. I know that address. I know that face. A month or so prior, I had delivered to this guy. His apartment complex was a few blocks down the road. To add to the creep factor, this dude lived in a complex with several buildings, where each one had a locked door to get into the building. It's full of young kids that are almost always drunk and ignorant when they order, and I have had issues there before. Due to that, I made a point to always have customers come and meet me at the main door as opposed to being buzzed in and going to their unit door. Usually it wasn't a huge deal, but this dude really tried to press the issue and had several excuses to why he couldn't come down, and I needed to come up. Each one was met with the company policy doesn't allow me to do that. Until he finally caved and came down, he was less than enthused but paid for his pizza and went about my way. As a female, and given that this happened within a few weeks of him kidnapping and killing the other girl, I'm so immensely grateful for all the drunken morons that caused me to stop going inside of the building at this complex. Once had a delivery to a house that was in one of the rich neighborhoods. I pulled up to the house, drive down a long ass driveway, and when I finally got to the door, I see an envelope taped to it. There is nothing written on it except Domino's on one side and leave on doorstep on the other. Inside is enough money to cover the pizza and a $10 tip. I look around, kind of awkwardly, before setting the pizzas on the doormat and putting the money in my pocket. While I was walking back to my car, I turned back around to look at the house, and lo and behold, the pizzas are no longer on the doormat. I didn't hear a door, and I hadn't been but 4 or 5 seconds since I had turned around. God knows where the pizza went. I also noticed as I was getting back in my car that there were cameras all around the perimeter of the house, on the walls, painted the same color as the house to blend in. I drove away and not a single damn was given. I once got chased like you see in the movies. A little information about me: I'm an 18-year-old male student. To make a little money, I part time deliver pizzas at night and on weekends. Note that I ride a moped to make deliveries, so my top speed is about 50 kilometers per hour or 31 miles per hour. So here's the story. It's a warm summer night. Sun was almost set, so in some directions visibility was very poor. I knew the street I was on very well and knew narrow roads lay ahead of me. What I didn't know was a car coming at me from the opposite direction at a high speed with its headlights off. I simply didn't see them because of the sun blocking my eyesight. We almost had a top speed frontal collision there, and with me being on a moped, I would have at least suffered from heavy injuries. I managed to dodge the car at the very last moment and did not hesitate a second to throw a good old middle finger at them for not turning on their headlights in those conditions. I still remember the car, a bright blue Fiat Punto with black rims. So a few days later, I spot the exact same car waiting at a yield sign for me and some other vehicle to pass. I was on my way back to the pizza place and had to make a left into the same street they were on. Time for me to mess around for a bit. Extremely slowly I passed the front end of the car. As I passed the driver's window, I noticed it was rolled down a little bit. I peeked inside and saw the biggest, most terrifying looking gym rat wearing the douchiest sunglasses ever. Next to him, a beautiful blonde girl. So the guy immediately starts swearing and calling me out, and I was like, bitch, come at me. I heard myself say it and instantly regret doing so because this was not a guy I wanted to get in a fight with. I'm a pretty tall guy. With this dude, hell no. So I got away from that car and as fast as I could, but a few moments later, I shit you not, the Fiat appears in my mirror. The guy now chasing me. I was driving as fast as I could, but with him being in a car, he could easily top that. There was a roundabout coming up, which I knew I could take on easily while doing full throttle. The car, of course, could not. This slowed him down for a bit, but it took only the guy a matter of seconds to get at my back end. He was now tailgating me, and I was scared as fuck. This wasn't enough for him, and he decided to drive next to me. Passenger window rolled down, shouting at me to stop so we could talk. Well, I was not going to do that. He was closing in on me, the girl looking at me the whole time, the car and me almost touching sides. At this point, I saw the golden opportunity, a side street on my right. I yanked the brake of the rear tire and power slid myself into that street. It wasn't my intention to lock the rear wheel, but I can assure you that locked cool. But this wasn't the end, as this guy saw it coming and slammed the brakes too. Once again, he was right behind me. Suddenly, I saw a narrow alley on the left. I did a hard left in the blue Fiat he wouldn't fit. I drove back to the pizza place as fast as I could. Sometimes I still spot that bright blue Fiat and I hide or quickly turn into other street to avoid it as much as I can. Not so much awkwardly as scary, but whatever. I'm a girl, and when I was delivering pizzas, I was around 18 or 19. Pretty scrawny looking thing. Anyways, I had a big delivery to a guy's party in his apartment. The apartment was on the top floor, so after hauling about 10 pizzas up 3 flights of stairs, I looked considerably frazzled. The guy opens the door, and there's about 15 men in the apartment, and he says I should come in and put them down on the table. Now I know better than to just enter people's houses. But this table was right near the door, and there was no way I was going to get the cash with these 3 pizzas bags draped over my arms. So I take one step towards the table and hear the door slam shut behind me. He locks the door and says, "We got one." And all these guys start sneaking in. And although it turned out to be a joke, albeit not a funny one, it was one of the most terrifying moments in my life.